Hello man, Equipment War here, and welcome to my build guide for my Cyclone Facebreaker Duelist. I'm gonna start by go over my passive skill tree, then my skill gems, and then my items. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show this character in action. So let's get started, and if you have any questions about the build, please let me know. Starting to take the physical damage and attacks with the beginning, then I went to take all of the physical damage here, and also this armor evasion and life notes here. And if you want even more life, you can take this note here as well. I went for Master Arena, Bravery, and Art of the Gladiator. Also went for Command of Steel for some nice block chance and attack speed and physical damage when holding a shield. Also I went for this Yule socket here. Yule sockets are quite important in this build because you can use an Abyssal Yule socket and you need to have as much flat physical damage as you can get. You can see this one adds 5 to 8 physical damage to attacks. Also have life. And that added physical damage are very important in a Facebreaker build. And also one of the biggest boosts to your damage. So the more flat physical damage you can get, the better your damage will be. Moving on, I went for Defiance. Then here I have another Yule socket. This one is Warlord's Reach, which I have Warlord's Reach mainly for the +1 to melee and to melee weapon and unarmed attack range. So my AoE will be bigger. But I would get better damage if I use another Abyssal Yule, which have flat physical damage on. But I went for Warlord's Reach. But you can have an Abyssal gem if you want to. And also you're getting Warlord's Reach through a quest reward. I also have Golem's Blood. Then I took almost the whole shield wheel, which took Testudo and Retaliation. I really want my block chance because that's my main defense in this build. So I just love block chance. And also Retaliation just gave me a ton of damage. Moving on, I went for Cloak and Chain. And then I went for Iron Reflexes. So I convert all of my evasion into armor, which is quite nice. And also, one side note, when it comes to Cloak and Chain, I really like that resistance. And I'm going to talk more about resistance later. Also the armor evasion. Moving on, I went to the Marauder area. On my way there, I picked up a Disembowering. I think this one is called that. But it's a nice boost to my crit chance. Also have a Bloodless for some nice life boost. And I went for Lost for Carnage for that nice attack speed and the physical damage Elixia's life, which is really nice. Also went for Juggernaut. I have Aggressive Bastillion, which is really nice. Give me a lot of damage to me when I'm holding a shield. Also give me a good amount of block chance. Another Yule here, which is another Abyssal Yule. This one have life, attack speed, and added physical damage to claw attacks. I'm gonna talk more about that later when it comes to my items. I went for Barbarism, and I went for Disembowering for some nice crit chance. Went into the Marauder area, took Solidarity, again increased damage when I'm holding a shield and some nice block chance. I also have Diamond Skin for some nice protection in the form of increased armor, also a small amount of movement speed and some increased resistance. I went for Warrior's Blood. I have Heart of the Warrior and Born to Fight. And I went for that life and armor here in the beginning of the Marauder area. I also went up here, grabbed another Yule socket, this one with flat physical damage to attacks and maximum life. And I went for the whole big life wheel here, and I took Path to Warrior. And that's pretty much my passive skill tree. So let's take a look at my ascendancy skill tree. I start by taking Painforged. This gave me 8% chance to block attacks if I were damaged by a hit recently. And also I cannot be stunned by hits from I block. And also my counter strikes deal double damage. And a counter strike is something like this, Reckoning. And you can see it do a lot of damage. And something like this do a lot of damage to enemies around me. So this is a counter attack. And I'm gonna talk more about my setup later when it comes to my skill gems. And after that I took Versatile Combatant. So my chance to block attacks or my chance to block spell damage are equal to the chance to block attack. So the more attack I can block, chance to block attacks, the more chance I have to block spells. And this is one of the most important notes here. This one will allows me to block pretty much almost everything that's hitting me. It makes me very tanky. I also take Violent Retaliation, which increases my maximum chance to block. give me damage when I block, give me a huge amount of damage if I'm blocking an attack damage from a unique enemy in the past 10 seconds. Also increases the chance of me blocking an attack by 1 for each time I blocked an attack in the last 10 seconds. Overall, a fantastic note, and I really love it. And I took Blood in the Eye, so my attacks have 25% chance to curse enemies to bleeding. How attacks with your bare fist can cause anything to bleed, I don't know, maybe you're hitting them on the nose or something, I don't know, but they're starting to bleed. Also, you attack maim against bleeding enemies, and a 10% chance to blind enemies to blind enemies hit with when they are bleeding. Also, maimed enemies take increased damage. So that's pretty much my passive skill tree and my ascendancy skill tree. If you have any questions about my skill tree, please let me know. So let's take a look at my skill again. I can start by talking about my main damage skill setup, which is Cyclone, supported by Brutality, melee physical damage, Fortify, increased critical strikes, and infused channeling support. And I have all of these skill gems in my main armor because it is my 6-link setup. Moving on to my mana reserves, I'm using Pride, so enemies close to me takes more physical damage. And I'm using Herald of Purity. Herald of Purity is a must-have in this build because it gives you flat physical damage. An alternative to Pride is to use Vulnerability with Blasphemy linked to each other. Also using Blood Rage to get some nice frenzy charges, some nice attack speed, and some life leech. I'm using one movement skill, which is Shield Charge, together with Power Charge on criticals, so I get some power charges when I crit on enemies. Melee physical damage for why not have some damage on your movement skill, and faster attack so I can use it faster. I have my Counter-Strike skill, which is Reckoning, together with melee physical damage, increased critical strikes, and again increased power charge on critical. So I have 2 ways to generate some power charges. And I'm using one cost and damage taken, and the skill gem linked to cost and damage taken are Vulnerability, Tempest Shield for some nice block chance, and Vortex to slow down enemies around me. And that's pretty much my skill gem. If you have any questions about my skill gem, please let me know. So let's start by talking about some items. I'll start by talking about the most important item in this build, which is of course the Facebreaker gloves. These gloves are an absolutely must-have for a build like this. And these gloves are what allows you to do good damage with your bare fist. It's all thanks to the more physical damage with unarmed. And that is a lot of more physical damage with unarmed. The highest amount you can get on a pair of gloves that I can drop today are 800. But there are legacy versions of these gloves that actually have up to 1000. But those gloves are generally relatively expensive. But these gloves are a must-have for this build and what the build is based around. Moving on. Talk about my helmet. I'm using Abyssus for the flat physical damage to attacks and also some quite nice critical strike multiplier. But this nice helmet have a big drawback, that I take extra damage from physical damage. So if I'm getting hit by physical damage, I take a bit of extra damage. And also, one warning, if you are in the labyrinth and are dealing with physical traps, like the swords for example, be very careful, because that is physical damage and that will do a lot of damage to you, because you can't block that damage. Moving on, I have this amulet here, which is also very important for this build. It allows my unarmed attack to have critical strike chance, because of the 7% to unarmed critical strike chance. And this amulet is very important. And also this amulet allows me to have claw damage, both attack speed, flat physical damage, and critical strike chance to apply to my unarmed attacks. So you can actually take claw damage and it will work with your unarmed attack and facebreaker attacks. This amulet is relatively expensive, but not that bad. When it comes to my shield, yes, I'm using a shield. I'm just using a transmog, so I don't have a shield on me. This is my favorite shield in the game, and it's just because of one thing. It gives me your hits can't be evaded, so I don't need jack shit in accuracy. I have 100% chance to hit enemies every time. You also have very good block chance of 31%, which is really nice. Also adds a shit ton of cold damage to my counterattacks, which is quite nice. But it doesn't have that much in the form of life and no resistance. And as you can see, a theme with the item I just shown, both the shield, amulet, helmet and my gloves, they don't have any resistance, any of those. And that's why having some resistance in the skill tree is quite important. Moving on to my rings. I'm using these two rings here, this one you saw before, and try to have at least one of your rings to have a percentage of your physical damage is leached as mana. Also, you need to have increased, actually flat physical damage to your attacks on both of them, because that's a lot of damage for you. And also try to get some resistance, because you're going to need it. And when it comes to my chest armor, I'm just using this armor here. It has some really nice resistance and a nice amount of life. And that's what I go for, life and resistance. And of course, being a 6-link. I'm using Megalodor's Girdle, mainly for the flat physical damage to attacks. It also have quite nice amount of strength, which also give you damage and life. Increased life and a small bit of resistance, and also make your flask a little bit more powerful. And finally, my boots. Using these pair of boots here, they have tolerable amount of movement speed and some resistance and life. There are a pair of boots which actually give you flat physical damage. I don't really remember the name of it, but you can see it on screen. Those will give you more damage, but the protection is not that good. But if you value your damage number higher than your protection, you can go for those pair of boots as well. When it comes to my flask, because I'm using Abyssus, always carry anti-bleeding flask that will remove bleeding from you. Because bleeding do a lot of damage to you because of Abyssus, so always have an anti-bleeding flask. If it is your life flask or utility flask, doesn't matter, just that you have an anti-bleeding flask with you. My other flask, this one, it has increased recovery rate, which is quite nice. I'm using a Lion's Roar for some nice damage boost and also a lot of armor. I'm using a Diamond Flask, which increases my crit chance. Actually, my chance to crit are lucky, because it means that my crit chance are rolled twice instead of once. And takes the highest number. And I have a movement speed flasks, just to move around a bit faster, which is really nice, especially when using Cyclone. And that's pretty much my gear. So let's take a look at this character in action. And well, before I forget it, when it comes to the bandits, you can either help Oak to get the flat physical damage, to get the physical damage, the life regeneration, and the reduction in the physical damage. Or you can kill all of the bandits and take the passive skill points. That's more up to you. I actually helped Oak in this build. Anyway, I thank you for watching, and I'm going to show this character in action, and tell me in comment what you think about the build. See you next time.